For all the latest news in North Central Washington, go to ncwlife.com or find us on Facebook. Got a news tip? Email us at news@ncwlife.com or call 888-2020.
Hi, welcome to Life with Lisa Bradshaw. I'm very excited about my guest today. I've known him for a while. He used to be on my radio show back in the day. Several times he was on the show. It was nice to be able to just talk with him and have him come through my earpiece. Never expected to meet him, but he drove over from Seattle today to be on the show. Craig Playstead, welcome here.
Thanks. Nice to be here, Lisa.
Yep.
Nice to meet you finally.
I know, it's funny. You walked in and like shaking your hand. We haven't actually officially met.
Yeah, it just dawned on me, but we actually haven't met, but
Yeah.
Radio, it feels like it.
Yeah, I found you when I read an MSN piece that you wrote about parenthood. Mm-hmm. You had a blog at the time called Full Contact Fatherhood, and I really liked your writing. It got to the point of things, but it also was humorous and funny. So
Well, if you're going to write about parenting, you can't go dry. You gotta. It's all humor. It's either you laugh or you cry, I suppose. So
tell people a little bit about what you do. You're a writer, but you're a content provider. Explain to people what that is.
Well, I've been a writer since high school. Mm-hmm. So as I've gotten older and progressed, and the world has progressed, I've kind of changed what I've written about based on my interests or just anything. I've done sports writing. I've worked in major companies doing content strategy and writing for them. I've done copywriting, fatherhood writing. I've done a little bit of everything, but all of it's sort of been grounded in humor because you kind of do with what you have. So getting a message through, especially something as important as like fatherhood. And at the time, no one was writing about fatherhood when I kind of picked that up. So you got to have it rooted in humor a little bit, or unless you've got a PhD or something, or you really have something you want to drive home. But I found that's the best way to get people kind of engaged in talking about it.
And to write about what you know, or at least what you're living, or what you're learning about.
Yeah, and I never claimed to actually know it as much as it was more kind of like, okay, I made this horrible mistake. I bet you people would like to know about this, or this is a funny story that happened to me, or exactly, people can relate, or even, man, I made a ridiculous mistake here, and it was funny now, and now I can kind of get that out there to the world. And like those MSN pieces you read, I wrote one on minivans that was like huge. The biggest thing. I mean, the back and forth from people. I got angry emails. People couldn't believe I would ever drive a minivan. How dare you? And then I would get people saying, "Oh, good for you. That's good." And it hit an emotional core. It was crazy. So
then, when I found you, when I found your blog, you were married with 3 kids, and now you're a single dad of 3 kids.
I am.
So that changes the scope of writing a bit.
That does change the scope of writing, especially time.
Having the time.
Having the time, finding the time and as I've got a little bit older, I can't write until 3 o'clock in the morning anymore. I found that out as well. Mm-hmm. But parenting changes an awful lot, because you figure, once your kids hit about 5th grade or so, you're like, I got this. I don't know what everybody's talking about. I'm fantastic. This is easy. Then you have teenagers, and you're thinking, what have I done? Oh my, I don't know what I'm doing.
And you have 3 of them.
Who are these? Yes, and who are these kids now? And they've totally, completely changed. And you look at Facebook, and it's all pumpkin patches and unicorn frappuccinos, right? And everything's great, but everybody I know is still kind of pulling their hair out at the same point. It's great, but at the same point, on a day basis, it can be just maddening.
Well, we talk about the difference between writing about them then, even who they are as people. I had a friend once tell me that he saw some pictures of his kids when they were younger, just ran across pictures, not the ones that are hanging on the wall that you see all the time that you become familiar with, but one that just kind of showed up in his desk somewhere or in an album. And he said, I realized that I don't know those people anymore. Those people no longer exist. These are the new people, and you miss them.
Exactly, and they're people now, right? I mean, when they're little, they follow you around. Everything you do is fantastic.
Yeah, they
Dad, let's spend
hang on every word and every idea. And
then they become teenagers, and they're breaking away as they're supposed to, and you're like, wait a minute, what happened? And we threw the football in the front yard every day for 7 years, and now you don't even want to talk to me? Well, I'm just getting grunts, and your room smells, and so
It's funny, interesting too, because I remember I had my son threw like the have you ever seen the Volvo commercial with the dad playing catch with his son in the car, and he's not such a good thrower, and then you see how his dad throws, and you realize why. Well, that's how I
great.
threw. And poor kid, his dad passed away when he was young, so he's playing catch with me, and that's how he learned to throw. And he spent the whole first season at about 9 years old, so he's already behind the curve because he hasn't been playing since T-ball at this point with the others. And he throws just like me. It took a whole year to get through that, and then I remember him saying, I want to be a pitcher. And I thought, ooh, you know, it was almost like him saying he wanted to be, you know, a star basketball player for the NBA. It just seemed a big reach, far reach. And my mom got him this net that had a hole in the center, and he could just throw into that. And we placed it in front of one of the gates, the fences near our house, and I replaced some boards, and he just threw against that net hours a day. Neighbors would comment, walk by, hey, where's your son? Because he wasn't there that day or something. Hours. And now he's the starting pitcher, and I watch him throw his last pitch next week.
That's great.
Last pitch. I don't even know how to prepare for that.
I know. And stepping back sometimes and remembering long ago, we don't do that enough, right? It's everything is we're taking selfies and everything. Pictures all the time, and you know, stop. I actually wrote an article about this one time. It just said, you know, stop for a second, look at your career, look at your kids. This is pretty good. Day to day, you got frustrations, but look how far he's come. You know.
And you look at the big picture.
You look at the big picture, and I don't do it enough. I know that. Drive over was nice. I got to do stuff like that and think about that. But yeah, that's fantastic. And
do you feel, I'm a writer as well professionally, and aside from the show, and I feel not a sense of obligation, but really opportunity to write about these things sometimes, because we have a way with words, so we can kind of convey or communicate to ourselves or through people we care about with words.
Right.
And but sometimes that can be an added pressure because I'm kind of an archiver, so I want to save everything.
Yeah.
And it's an extra responsibility, perhaps.
It can be, and it depends. My kids, my family, besides my mother, who everything I write she thinks is fantastic, thank God. But no one wants to see anything I've ever written. My kids, all that kind of stuff. So for me, a lot of the stories I used to write, and we were just talking, I've never used my kids' real names or anything like that. I have actually gotten to step back a little bit and look at those and say, oh wow, God, there's a lot that's happened. I'm actually putting them in a book.
Oh,
and hopefully it'll be up before Father's Day. Perfect Father's Day gift.
You'll have to come back.
And just being able to do that is helpful, because we've gone from a society that decades ago, dads were not involved, you know, in a lot of the day-to-day stuff. Kids were, you know, on their own a lot. I mean, I heard an interview with Sarah Jessica Parker. She said, I used to go on auditions when I was 12 in New York and just ride the subway by myself. Right now, that is an Amber Alert almost situation, right? It's like we're always just right there, and just hearing your son by himself practicing, that's how you get better, you know.
Right.
Select soccer and everything 15 times a week, you know, it can be too much, but just kind of working those things on your own and working them out, that's how you get better, and that's how you progress, and that's how you grow.
Right.
So,
one of the things that I wanted to ask you as well, and you know, the idea that you are writing about parenthood and you've been doing it for so long. How has what you wrote about then changed to what you write about now? Not even just about your own kids, but your philosophy of parenting may have changed over the years, from being married with children to divorced with children.
Yeah, it's
babies, teenagers.
It's kind of gotten, I've gone, at the beginning it was lots of stories, right? I can make this a funny story. My goal is sort of, what can I make, anything maybe even painful, funny, right? So that was sort of a lot of it. And just sort of the day-to-day craziness that we all pretend not to have, but we all have it, right? And then now it's a little bit different. I've kind of gone and tried to take a bigger picture look, even for this part. And the one thing that's dawned on me the most, and you know, the biggest problem that our generation has sort of pushed on our kids, is that we've put them first in the family. We didn't put marriages first. Kids are sort of running the show, when in you know, for years, and it was done pretty well, the kids, they would conform to how the parents had the house set. My parents just had their 50th wedding anniversary, and that was the story I told in the toast. Was my mom told me years ago, when I was arguing with my dad, I met him first. This is first, you're next. And I remember thinking to myself, this is me though, right? And it was perfect, because that was the stable, that was the core, that was the foundation the whole family was built on. And you know, we're coming up behind. We're sleeping on the floor at you know, my aunt's house. We're not, you know, making sure everything's just perfect. and that's how it should be. Kids should be part of the family. They shouldn't be the main focus of the family. And I think that's destroyed a lot of families, especially our generation.
Let's dive a little more deeply into that when we come back in just a moment. We're talking with Craig Playstead. He made the drive over from Seattle today. Grateful for that. Finally meeting in person and getting his ideas on television instead of radio. We'll be back in just a moment.
Get the fastest internet available in North Central Washington by switching to LocalTel and get speeds up to 1,000 meg. Call 888-8888 today or go online to localtel.net.
Hi, we're back on Life with Lisa Bradshaw. I'm Lisa Bradshaw. In the studio with me today is Craig Playstead. He is here from Seattle. He's a writer. He has a blog called Don't Let the Glasses Fool You. I found him years ago when I read his story on MSN about parenting. He had a blog at the time and still writes now about the follies of being a parent. You try to find the humor in it.
You have to. Yeah, absolutely.
So we were talking before the break about your ideas about how your parents have celebrated 50 years of marriage, and it was because they put each other first. And society today is putting kids before the marriage, before pretty much everything else.
We're putting kids before everything, absolutely. And we've got them on a treadmill constantly as well. So instead of, I think what we're doing is we don't ever step back and say, what's the role, right? Mm-hmm. Is the role to bully the soccer coach into more playing time, or to belittle the teacher to get that B- to maybe an A? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Or is the role actually to give them the tools and love to survive in sometimes what can be a cruel world when we're not around?
And I think there's a balance with that, because I would be considered a helicopter mom to some people, I would think, particularly men that are my friends. Like, I'm the mom who freaked out when my son would get hit with a baseball batting. I couldn't help it if I gasped, but I didn't run out on the field to him. But I think that I guess that maybe isn't helicopter term. That's
love.
It is.
I would say that falls in the love category.
I tried to have rules for myself with him. For example, with school, I didn't sit I wasn't part of the homework situation at all. And I think that was one of my better choices. I've made poor choices as a parent, but that was a good choice because homework became his responsibility. I logged in every once in a while to check his grades when he got older. Then if I saw something drop, not because he was trying hard, but if he had missing assignments, I'd say, hey, do you want me to get involved, or are you going to take care of that yourself? And he never wanted me involved, so he'd fix it. And then sometime around sophomore year, I didn't check anymore because he was always letting me know where he stood in class or that sort of thing. So I think it's a hard thing to know where do you draw the line. I guess particularly for single parents like yourself, I'm widowed, you're divorced, and there isn't that other relationship to nurture. Your only focus really is that relationship sometimes.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's building the foundation, right? You've obviously built the foundation in your son for hard work and accountability, right? And the accountability one is one we have swung and missed on as well, but so he had that sort of ingrained in him, and he could kind of take that for himself. So the little things like constantly having to check on missing assignments and stuff, which I still have to do more than I would like to.
It's exhausting, isn't it?
They're me. That's the other horrifying part of parenting is when you're like, why is your assignment late? Why are you getting, why are you making too many jokes in class? And your teacher had to email me, and then I think, oh my God, it's me.
And what did they say to that? Well, Dad.
Well, yeah. These grades don't really count anyways until high school. But it's building the foundation of taking pride in your work and thinking of others and helping. That obviously was, you had already done that, so he's got a lot of it. So if you do that kind of work first, hopefully it sort of takes care of itself, and they're all going to flounder a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's part of growing, right? I was just talking to my daughter, and I told her, you're going to be, she said, I'm nervous to go to college, and I said, good.
Yeah, you're supposed to.
That's good, because that's when you grow. So,
You're scared.
Exactly. There is a lot of helicopter, and we're killing these teachers, these poor teachers who are not getting a whole lot of support and funding and everything as it is, but berating them. It used to be, back in our day, a lot of the parents were like, hey, listen, if Craig gets out of hand, take care of it. You have my blessing, right? Yeah. So they were an extension.
Right.
It's that community parenting almost, where you're raising what was the takes a village type of thing. It's true. But now we've sort of pushed a lot of that out and put it all on us, which you need help. It's hard.
But where's the balance in that too? Because what we can also say when we were in high school and in college, well, let's just focus on high school and junior high. If we got a grade on a test or we didn't turn in an assignment, that's it.
Yep.
We didn't get to retake. We didn't get to turn in late.
Nope.
And I know that there's pressures to make sure that every kid has an opportunity to learn at the same level and that sort of thing. So I'm not a teacher, so I can't even begin to imagine the challenges that they face these days. But that goes back to the accountability part too, right?
Absolutely. And you put it on your children to say, listen, if you don't think you deserved a C minus, go talk to your teacher, because 99% of the teachers are more than happy to say, here's why you got the C minus, right? Instead of you going to them. And I think, and again, it's knowing, is my child being treated unfairly here, really? Or is it, I'm embarrassed now that he can't have a C minus, and I can't go tell my friends that my son's getting horrible grades. This is embarrassing, right? So, but again, just knowing, do you think this teacher's really being mean-spirited? My son had come home, oh, the teacher hates me. I'm like, why? Out of all of these kids that she has, does she hate you, right?
Are you the terrible?
So, yeah, but it's teaching the accountability, and we're going to have to start putting some trust back in teachers, or no one's going to want to do this anymore.
Right, and so then the other side of that, I guess, too, is how much of it is just they need to study more, or they need to, then that kind of brings back home again, right?
Yeah.
Where I sent you this quote when we were talking about the show, something about children who are loved at home come to school to learn, and children who are not come to school for love.
Absolutely.
And I don't want the responsibility of a teacher to be to love my kid. I hope they enjoy his company, and I hope they grow and have relationships and know each other for years to come. But if I'm relying on them, then I'm not doing my job, and that's really your point.
Absolutely. And then and that's, parenting is difficult, and there are people that have kids that probably shouldn't have had kids and are not parenting. There are parents that are overworked and probably can't do a lot of. There are parents who just, that we need some help sometimes. And if we have kids coming to school that are hungry, and we have kids coming to school that are being abused, and we have kids coming to school with all these problems, how can we possibly sit there and hammer on them on a test or something?
For them to be in a learning setting.
And the problem with that is it causes way more society problems, right? We've got drugs and crime and all that stuff. Better parenting and kids that feel loved don't go out and do a lot of that stuff. Bullying, I am almost 100% of in my opinion, that's a parenting problem as well.
It can be, yes,
right?
I agree.
A lot of the times, I would bully. In the 80s was almost a team sport. But but kids that have a good feeling about themselves and about their families and stuff, when they come to school, they're not angry. And we all go through our stuff, and we all act, like jerks and stuff sometimes. But at its core, I think as a society, we need to do more, and parents need to be standing up to government about why are these schools so underfunded. Why is everything cut? Why are the teachers not getting the support they need? The principals are overworked. They're putting out their own money a lot of times. We need to stand up. And not one person that ran for president ever said, you know what, we need to do, the very first thing in our budget should be to take care of those that can't take care of themselves. And that first is kids. There's a long line of people, but they didn't ask to be born. They can't go out and make a living. They can't do these things. It needs to start there, and we're not putting any pressure on that.
When we come back, we'll show my interview via Skype with Greg Wickherst. I found his story on Facebook. He talked about parenthood. He took a class to learn how to take care of his young daughter's long locks of hair. We'll be back in just a moment.
Please join us weekly for the 12th District with yours truly, Kerry Condata. Check your channel guide for times or go to ncwlife.com for details.
Hi, we're back. We are talking with Dad, Greg Wickherst. He is the Dad's Guide to Surviving Girls' Hair. And he's coming to us from Pueblo, Colorado. Thanks for being here, Greg.
Thanks for having me.
So I found you through a viral post that somebody shared with me on Facebook. And you have quite the Facebook page, YouTube channel. You've got it all for teaching people how to do little girls' hair. So tell us about how you got started.
So a couple of years ago, I was a single dad, and First of all, I've been shaving my head for the last 16 years. And so ended up as a single dad, and I could barely do a ponytail. And I happen to work at a school that teaches cosmetology. So I asked the program supervisor if she could show me, just simple braids, buns, ponytails, that kind of stuff. And instead of her teaching me, she just had one of her students spend an hour with me on my lunch hour. And so that night I went home and I started practicing on just doing regular, just regular braids and ponytails and that kind of stuff. Well, I ended up finding that there was a good way for me and my daughter to bond. We could talk, and it was a fun thing for us to do. And so I ended up becoming pretty good at it. The Huffington Post ended up seeing like an album that I did, and they made a video about it, or I'm sorry, an article about it, and that ended up becoming viral. And a lot of people from that asked if I could like do some tutorials. So I started doing tutorials, and that's how we ended up here.
And how long ago? How old's your daughter now?
She just turned 5. That
5.
happened 2 years ago.
So when you got started, so she was only 3 at the time. So her hair is getting thicker, and you can do more and more with it. I watched your videos, so the span of how much she's grown up, really. And
Yeah.
it looks like a lot of fun. You're right, the bonding. She spends a lot of time with her feet in that sink, sitting on the counter.
Well,
She's probably outgrown the sink
grown
now.
out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't fit in that anymore.
So when I was looking at all the pictures, and we're going to show some of those now, and you're way beyond ponytails and buns now.
Yeah.
Although I'm sure that sometimes that's an easy thing to do. But like the St. Patrick's Day picture of her hair, not only is this, I don't even know what it's called. What is that braid called?
It's a shamrock. It's a shamrock braid or shamrock.
Well, that makes
Basically, I
sense.
took one ponytail, divided it by 3, made a little heart out of the 3 sections, and all 3 hearts went into the middle, and I kind of curled that and put a ribbon on it, and looks like a shamrock.
I was thinking too when I'm watching these that you must be the most popular dad in her class, and you must get a lot of people saying, "Hey, could you help me out a little bit?" Because did you do her hair every morning for school, something different, or just special occasions?
I've tried to have a different hairstyle every day so far this year, and I've been able to do it so far. And some are harder than others. Sometimes I'm running late, and I just got to do an extra braid on the ponytail. But I teach classes here in my hometown, or in Pueblo, and so a lot of the dads come up to me and they ask me like, "Oh, I know you're that dad. Can you tell me when the next class is going to be?"
Oh, cool. So you teach classes beyond the YouTube. You actually teach in-person classes.
Yeah, I'm actually part of a group of dads across the country that we all teach free classes. It's called Daddy Daughter Hair Factory.
Oh, wow. And so then when you do this, I mean, how long does it take you now to do, say, the shamrock braid that we showed?
That one was probably about 15 minutes. All of my styles are usually between 3 and 20 minutes.
Yeah, it takes me long to get this, and it doesn't look nearly as good as what you do. So your daughter, does she realize what a cool dad she has, or,
I think she's picking up on that.
Yeah.
I know she came home from daycare one day, and she said, "Daddy, I'm famous." I said, why would you say that? She said, "Because the people at my daycare, the kids at my daycare told me I am."
Oh, that's funny. That's good stuff. Well, you're doing a great job, Dad. This show is about sharing the good stuff and what people are doing. And, those viral stories are viral for a reason, because people relate to it or aspire to it. So I just want to congratulate you on that and wish you guys a lot of happy years doing hair. I can't imagine what you're going to do for her hair for her wedding one day.
I know. I've already been looking up like prom styles and wedding
that's
styles.
True. Prom, winter formals, things like that. Let's not get too far ahead, right?
Right.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, and thanks for working with me all week to get on the show today. I know you took a break from your lunch hour to do this, so I appreciate your time. That's a fun story to tell. I also want to thank you again, Craig, for being here. Craig Playstead. Again, the blog is?
Don't let the glasses fool you.
Perfect. Thanks. We'll be back next week.
Stay up to date with what's happening in North Central Washington. Go to the NCW Life Community Calendar at ncwlife.com.